Last time I spoke to Ray on the phone, Ray, of course, raced in the same era that I did. In fact, we used to go to the races together with our friend Fred Anderson. And we had basically, Ray was a way better driver, and but we had so much fun it didn't even matter. We just had, we just had memories of times that you're never going to live those times again. There's something about those times. First, the most thing that you remembered, none of the bikes had any silencing. So when a bike went by, when 10 race bikes went by, the ground shook. You had to put earplugs in. Nowadays, the race bikes go by and they sound like, but nothing like the old days. And I guess I'm carrying on long enough here. Between that bird and, God, I've looked for him again today. Between the bird and all the memories that jogged back to me, a chickie living in my shop, and these books from Ray. By the way, there's another book. I'm just living like in a dream world today. I don't know if I'm going to get anything done, either on the bike or in the shop. And what happens to me, and I don't know what it happens to everybody, it happens to me though, I get to a point in my life where I find that I'm looking back at the past more than I really want to acknowledge. And I kind of drive down the road and I see all modern stuff, and all of a sudden an old car goes by and I'm drawn to the old car. Or Karen and I riding around town, there's a bunch of big fancy houses in town, and we're drawn to the older houses that are being restored. And I don't know why, but I become addicted to going down a cruise night and just shooting the breeze with people that feel exactly like I do. And I find that almost everybody that's my age has pretty similar memories if they're interested in model planes, if they're interested in motorcycles, cars, railroading, aviation. They always have the same set of things that they like. It's amazing. And the modern world has figured a way of stomping out every one of them and replacing them with something, just to be honest, just isn't as good. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love and enjoy every minute of riding the R1 and trying to push it as hard as I can within a realm of safety. But then I think, wow, way back when, was this an adventure? I mean, these bikes were not on rails, believe me. Every one of them was an adventure to ride. When you got off the bike, your heart was pumping. And I really want to thank Ray. There's another book here, and I'll go through that real quick. It's called Proficient Motorcycling, which I always enjoy. And this is one thing that's funny. A lot of people think you ride your whole life, it's not worth taking lessons. Nothing would make me happier right now than if I had, and I don't have the time or the inclination, to go to a riding school where you can ride on the track with professionals and they coach you and check you out. I'm really lucky that I have Billy to help me out and critique my riding and tell me what I'm doing wrong. But boy, would that be a wonderful experience. Now, it was probably 5-6 years ago, Karen saved up her pennies and got me a ride in an AT6. And when we got that ride on the AT6, what happened was that it just blew me away how much fun it was. But a riding school, a real riding school on a track, just be awesome. Now that was from our friend Ray Straub, and that to me is one very special gift. Ray, believe me, I'm going to share this with Rob. I'm going to share it with Billy. And the other book, well, let me see what's in there. I got to look at it. I'll look at it over lunchtime, and there's a disc in there too. Maybe Rob will watch the disc. Maybe I'll watch the disc. What am I talking about? The other book, I just skimmed this to see if it was going to be real interesting. It's really interesting. Now, again, I am not opposed at all to learning how to upgrade my skills, and I'm sure both Rob and I are going to learn several things from this. And my goal with Rob, of course, is just to make sure he learns how to ride as efficiently and safely as possible. And well, I'm sure there's things to learn. Roll axis, lean axis. Anyway, we're going to check this out. This is just one of the things I'm amazed with modern motorcycles. The compounds of the rubber are 3 different stripes, so that when you're leaned over, you're in a real soft rubber, and then on the straight up and down, it's relatively hard. all kinds of cool stuff like that. And of course, different things that explain this. There's always, well, I guess the thing is, it's life in general. There's always something to learn, and when you're willing to learn, and you approach it from that point of view, it's not only fun, but it adds to your life in a way that you almost can't measure. Anyway, between the bird and this, and we're headed out toward having a pretty exciting day here. Hey, Ray, Marilyn, Art, anybody else, the kids that get to see this. I figured I'd give you a little. Now this is pretty funny. There's my motorcycle. What I want to do today is, I already have the lettering off, I have all these decals off. I want to paint this piece and test this paint I got from Yamaha to see it's a perfect match. And if that matches perfectly, then this would be the next piece. So that this whole fairing piece is going to be blue. And what's neat is they just named the YZF-R1 the motorcycle of the year. Not that that means a lot to me, but because I'm not Ben Spies. See, I'm the old guy that isn't Ben Spies. But believe me, this is still a lot of fun to ride. And the really special thing about this motorcycle is that cross-plane engine. This is our second attempt at getting paint that matches. This isn't stirred up yet, but and we've already painted some parts with paint that very close but not perfect. Now this is paint that the manufacturer guaranteed would be perfect, or I could return it and get my money back. So we're going to find out in about an hour. Bike of the year. Who'd have thunk it? I think that's, see, a lot of people don't really, they like all these stripes and names. I don't like it at all. I like everything just one color. And these parts are made out of a flexible plastic, and I've got to back mask all this other stuff, otherwise the paint's going to be burning when it hits up by the pipes. Back mask by the rubber. And then I got to prep this up, soap and water and M600. Now the initial look before this is even totally dry is that we got a very good match here. At last, free at last. We got to put the second coat of urethane on here. And then the procedure is, with that material that we have, they say wait 5 days before you buff it out, but we can put it back on a bike, ride the bike for 5 days before we buff it out. Now this morning, one of the things I wanted to try to do, what happens with this dried overnight? The master plan is, and I'm going to go by the directions of this material, supposed to let it dry 5 days before you buff it out. Well, this is going to be a hard part to buff out once it's on the bike. So what I'm going to try to do is, and this is Bob Brookins' suggestion, we're going to try to do it the way he said to try it, is we're going to try to buff it with 1500 sandpaper before I put it on the back on the bike. And let's just see, because what I'm trying to do is just get out all the dust. And it would be the same whether it's on an airplane, whether it's on a motorcycle, a guitar, a boat. And what I'm trying to do is build up a little database for using this material. This is material that I'm assuming I'm going to want to use more and more of in the future, especially if we start painting motorcycles again, which there's a possibility that might happen. In fact, we have one lucky Suzuki owner that's already dropped his bike, and we may be able to cut a deal. I'm not sure. When I used to paint motorcycles years ago, it was a whole different world with the lacquers, but these urethane paints, and thanks to Bob Brookins, I get like a little heads up on some of these things before I have to go and do them. But and one of the things about the urethanes, they stay flexible. They paint rubber bumpers with them anyway. But they have this little tendency that the lacquers don't, of picking up dust. They're like flypaper for an hour or so. And I guess that's normal, that even in a, if this was a car, they just take a car buffer and buff it out. The problem is, where this is on the bottom of the motorcycle. I'm going to be laying on my back buffing it out, so I thought I'd give this a try to add this info to the database if I can. Because one of the things we're anticipating doing over the winter, maybe this year or next, is making Billy's Ducati and my Yamaha matching Ferrari bikes with real Ferrari paint, which pretty expensive. And for anybody that doesn't know, when you see a Ferrari on television, that red that you see is not the red they paint the cars with. It's a TV red. It's got extra pixels in it, whatever it has. Who the hell even knows, and who cares? But we painted one of the model planes with it, and it really is a lot brighter than all the others. And I know Bob Brookins has access to that paint, so we can get his guy to get us some. But this is the Yamaha OEM paint right here. So we're going to find out if this is going to work. Again, all these things are gobbledygook until you actually get to do them. That is still some dust, little flakes of dust in there. I'm just going to keep sanding this until I get all the dust out. And unlike lacquer, getting out this dust can be, with 1500 paper, pretty time consuming. But the things we found out already is that, just like the aeroplanes, Gorham's is the way to get the rough buffing, and then we have the product that Bob recommended, the Final Shine. Not Final Shine, Finesse It. And one of the other problems with these materials, these urethanes, they're expensive. I mean, you don't waste a 1 ounce of this material, unlike lacquer that's relatively inexpensive. Dope lacquer, acrylic lacquer. This stuff is much, much more expensive. So we're trying to be efficient about it, trying not to waste any. And since it's not raining out there today, I may even, if this buffs up, what I'll do is just do a rough buffing on it, put it back on the bike, and 5 days from now, pull the parts back off and rebuff them. These come right on and off in a matter of a few minutes. But some of the other parts that I wanted to paint, they're a little more difficult, a little more time consuming. So this was my guinea pig, and what I'll do is I'll repaint the seat even if this is a perfect match, and it looks perfect. But again, you never know till it's in the sun a couple of days, and you can really look at it from a lot of different angles. And if you're not that fussy, of course, yeah, close enough is good enough, but we'd really like this to be perfect. And it's such a pretty color in real life. And the fact that they just named it the R1 the bike of the year, I'm not sure what that buys me. I'm not sure they're going to give me a free spark plug or something for that. But it is a fun bike. If anybody's never driven a real super bike, it's in a class with driving a Ferrari, or it's a lot of fun. And it's even more fun when you're old like me and there aren't many fun things left. You can't eat donuts. You can't eat pizza whenever you want. You got to walk the track every morning just to keep from becoming the Goodyear blimp. Life is so cruel. All right, we're about ready for some Gorhams here. Let's see how this. It's still got a little bit, just a hair. Now the problem is if I sand this with 1200 or 1000, what's going to happen? It's going to leave scratches. The 1500 doesn't leave any scratches. Now the 1500 really does. It takes a lot of time to get the dust out. This is one of the parts that has to be sanded yet. But anytime, whatever time I spend doing this, if I spend 2 hours, it's probably going to be an hour aside, maybe a little more. When I go to do the final buffing on this 5 days from now, I can get under the bike and do this by hand, or I can just pop. These parts come off every time you have to do maintenance or an oil change or a filter change or anything. So very nice and convenient. The way the Yamaha comes apart, very, very easy to work on. I found it real easy anyway. But the next step on this is 1500 sand. Now I wasn't sure if I'm going to need another coat of urethane to clear on top of this. I don't think I am. But the good thing about the urethane, it does stay flexible. If we did this with acrylic lacquer, in a matter of some short amount of time, it would crack. And for me, it's a whole new learning curve using this urethane, but again, thanks to the help of Bob Brookins, Richard Oliver, some of the other people that have a good background in this and are willing to share the information, I think we're going to be pretty successful. While I'm trying to buff this part out, Karen, of course, was listening to Ray Dory music. Listening to 50s music to make me crazy. Anyway, the polish looks like this is going to come up real nice. I always like to try to do it by hand first. You don't wind up catching an edge or burning a part. Very similar to doing a model plane. So many similarities between model planes and making these parts that, and of course the finishing of them. Let's see how that's coming up. Every day Ray Dory sends us this, what do you call it, New Orleans music? 50s music?
No, he sends us old music.
Old music. Little by little it's coming up, let's see. Just going to take some time. Now as I'm getting to what I hope is going to be my pre-buff out, so I can wait for the 5 days. See, what I want to know is, lacquer takes, well, a lot longer than 5 days to really reach its final hardness. This looks like it's going to be, well, that'll certainly be a good part of the buff out. I can do the final 5 days from now, but just to get this, I wanted to see it. I didn't want to put the parts back on the bike. Of course, we'll be coming up on a cruise night, and I don't want to go down there. Well, I may not even take this bike, so it won't even matter. But all the things we're learning about this new material, we'll be able to use on the big job, which will be, I think, will be a big help. In fact, we may even try to do a urethane paint job on that big job. We'll certainly find out. And the microfibers do a real nice job. I always like to buff these parts out by hand anyway. And we'll be ready soon to just put these back on a bike and see how it looks. Yeah, I like the way that's looking. I think that's going to be pretty nice. I always like to candle it. And you notice another thing too that happens, the color changes dramatically from the buffed out, because part of it is it's metallic. Part of it is you can see it under fluorescent lighting too. You can see the difference in, and actually even when it's sanded with 1500 it has a little bit of a reflective quality. I always like to do this thing too. If I can watch television in my work. If you just hold the thing up so you can watch television in your part, that's usually a good test that you got a good buff out. And the last step, of course, is to see these parts in the sun. Oh man, I could say hello. That's some nice paintwork. And it's a new skill I need to develop for doing urethane, because we're going to be doing motorcycles in the shop from, I assume, from time to time, or parts for Billy, parts for myself. Boy, that is a nice match. That is some nice metallic paintwork. Oh, that's a beautiful Midgley. Eat your heart out. That is truly a Midgley color. And the only thing left to do, snap them in place. That's a 5-10 minute job. And oh, I love the color. That paint is nice to use. It's actually, I'm sure I'm going to get used to it. It'll be Just as easy to use as the lacquers. I always like to look at it from a lot of different angles, and even in the bright sun, the paint is an absolutely perfect match, which is real nice. And that's definitely going to allow us the option of painting some of the other parts and repainting the little tail section to get a better match. I think we'll get a perfect match this time. That match worked out great. Now, some of the little projects that I work on, they're educational for me. And in the end, you know, I get to see the fruit of my labor. This was a good one. And again, thanks to all the people that helped, especially Bob Brookins, helped make this possible. Boy, today turned out to be such a beautiful, sunny, summery day that Karen decided, as she does about 5 times every year, that today would be an adventure day. An adventure day for us is we just get in a car with no particular place to go and see where we wind up. And I think one of the places we're going to try to hit is, and we've never put this on video yet, is our place where all the motorcycles go, Bear Mountain. We'll wind up there at some point in the day. And if you've never been to Bear Mountain, it is by far one of the most scenic places, I think, on the whole East Coast. Bear Mountain Park. Every great Wendy and Karen adventure begins with a trip to the car wash. Because we've been so busy lately, I haven't really had time to wash cars like I normally do. But it doesn't matter. How much more fun can this be, Karen?
I love this.
You love it. She loves going to the car wash. Could it be more fun than this? Start the adventure with.
Part I like.
With the shimmy shake. Start the adventure with a clean car. Oh my God, life is an adventure. And there really aren't any Wendy and Karen adventures that don't center around one of two things: antiquing. Antiques.
Or motorcycles.
Or motorcycles, correct. Or antique motorcycles. Look at a bear. The bear is very cool. He'd look good by our pond. And we never really get to show off the great state of New Jersey, but there's some beautiful garden centers here, and this is one of them. And they got a gift shop, so let's check it out. Nice landscaping. And we're looking for some, well, some exotic stuff. Oh yeah, they got nice stuff in there. Well, we always look for some ideas of some exotic plants we can include by our pond. And I think we found some. Some beautiful waterfalls and ponds here. Karen found something she can't live without. I think it's a succulent. What a nice little pond they have here. Actually, they have more than one. Nice fish. Some big guys in there too. I love to watch the koi. So relaxing. See these succulents growing out in this little crack by the rocks?
Chartreuse kind of flower at the end of it. Oh, here it is. How pretty. And does it spread? Oh, yeah. It's very invasive, actually.
No, actually, we got a perfect spot for it then.
Good. All right, let me go get some stuff.
Thank you.
What's this called? Did she tell you?
Euphorbia.
What?
Euphorbia.
Oh, euphorbia. I'll get it right.
Euphorbia. Sounds like a disease.
She's going to dig it out from it.
Oh, she's going to dig one right out of her
Right,
collection.
yeah.
Okay. We'll take it. I like them. And it's a succulent? It'll go through the winter?
assuming so.
Well,
Oh, that's it.
they don't plant these every year, I'm sure.
You're gonna take one
Nice water. They got nice koi up top. Nice little stop on our adventure here. So we're gonna have some exotic plants.
You're gonna plant it in soil for us so it can sit in the coil bag.
Okay. Nice adventure so far? Hey, I just noticed, you know that shirt you have matches my R1. Maybe I could wear that when I go riding.
You look stunning.
As they go zoolin' by. Now, one of the things Karen and I always enjoy is taking a summer day like today and just having an adventure. And not having any idea where we're going to wind up or what part of Jersey. We've confined this to New Jersey. Northern New Jersey. This is a really nice garden center. This is really someplace I like it. Just a little more water from this waterfall than I have at mine. 2,000 gallons a minute more. Waiting for her exotic plants. The lovely Karen Ertnowski. So there's our new plant that'll soon be planted. Not many garden centers you go to, they just reach down and take a piece for you. Amazing.
You're gonna wind up getting some of this other seedling in here too.
Oh, that's okay. And is that a succulent?
Yup.
That'll make it through the winter without any problem?
This?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it does here.
Yeah, I was thinking you didn't plant this every year.
Yeah, we'll find it when she comes out. We'll ask what that is. Unless she has some more of it. The bees are everywhere.
Yeah, if you like bees, this is a great place to be. I think one just flew up my pant leg.
No taste. Oh, here it is. What is this? Doja hot sun. Hot sun, that's great. We could do. This is port sun. If this works, Wendy, there are other places we can put. That's I wanted, but that's a nice one to the garden.
Nice. I like them.
Oh, your video too.
I got to record this moment in history when we add to our flower collection. Looks like Midgley's here with his truck with the flames on it. That's a Midgley truck. Ooh, that's a nice fountain right there, Karen.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Very nice.
Yeah, maybe we just passed here. We didn't even.
Look at this. There's an F-86 Sabre jet in the park here, and just sitting here, I guess, so kids can play on it. Wow. Bear Mountain, here we come. Okay, we're headed up the big hill, and there's about a 2-mile hill, and it's called the Perkins Memorial Highway, and it goes right to the top of Bear Mountain. Hey, nice Ducati Monster. I'm not even sure if you can see how steep this road is, but we're really headed up some steep next 2 miles. And this is where basically one of my favorite places to ride motorcycles up here. This is one of the scenic spots. Now, you haven't been here ever, or you were here years ago?
When I was a kid.
When you were a kid. That was a long time ago. 150 years ago.
Hey, don't be nasty.
We're old, baby. You can see why this is very attractive to the motorcycle guys, huh?
Definitely.
Yeah, it was like going up Cadillac Mountain, was the same thing.
Oh my God, it's pretty scary here. You could fall right over.
Oh yeah, you could go over. Frank Straub saw some guy go over the cliff already. There's nothing to stop you from going over either. Very exciting. Now see, here's the dangerous thing. See the bicycles coming down?
Yes.
He's going way faster than, if he doesn't make the turn, then he's probably wearing one of those cheesy bicycle helmets. Now here's the guy going the other way.
Yeah, he's going up. He's struggling.
Oh yeah. He doesn't know he's on windy videos. His tush is on windy videos. Now look out to the side here, Karen. You can see, get an idea how high we are up in the air here.
Yes.
And that's the parkway down there. Guys, snow skiing without skis. Not sure what that's all about. And early in the morning, the deer are all along this road. When you come up here, they're right on the edge of the, you know, it's daylight now, so they're not out, but or just before dusk too. And it just goes on and on for hour after hour. Yeah, there's really nothing to keep you if you go over the cliff in a car even. You know what this road is like
Do you
too?
think Rob is ready for this?
Yep, he's
Yeah.
ready.
You don't think it's too dangerous a ride?
Nah, he'll be fine. Now you can look, there's a scenic, here comes another guy on a motorcycle. You can see the scenic overlook here is pretty nice. Right here, nope, it's further up. Shows you what I know. There's one scenic overlook about halfway up. Oh, now you can see it. Well, you can almost see the Hudson through the trees. We're gonna see.
Yeah, I see.
But the beauty here is when you're here early in the morning and there's nobody else around. It's gonna be crowded now. I'm sure there'll be other people up here. And you can see how high up we are now. We're cruising. And it's about time we show some of the nice East Coast scenery to complement Rich Wahlberg's great drive through Los Angeles traffic. So we walk up to the top of Bear Mountain, and there's a tower, but it's usually closed. I don't think they let you go up there anymore. Now the objective here is to see how close you can get to the edge of the cliff without falling.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
Not a chance, huh?
No, I don't have sneakers on.
I want my friends in Brazil to see this because we took a lot of pictures from the top of the mountain in Brazil. We got to give them some pictures of our equivalent of.
I had a quarter.
Guys are supposed to be doing number crunching. I figured hillbilly home.
Oldie but goodie. This guy isn't exactly setting a world speed record here. Yep, you're on Windy Videos, friend. You can get a view out this window too. This is one of the scenic, yeah, I see they got kids here. One of the scenic outlooks.
Gorgeous.
See the sailboats out in them?
Absolutely.
Pretty special ride up here. Pretty nice place to go motorcycling. Pretty nice place to just drive around in the car. A lot of hairpins and switchbacks and people riding bicycles.
Seacoast Road and the banks of the
I guess they have those
paddle
rent-a boats.
yeah.
Yeah, the paddle boats like they had at Hudson County Park.
There are songs for the homeless, there are songs for the dreamers.
It's quite a nice area. And yet the nuclear power plant is right up there. As we come down off the mountain. Look how close that is to the nuclear power plant.
Where's that? Oh,
Right out there,
it
with
is.
that dome is the nuclear power plant right there.
What is this one called?
Fishkill. I'm not sure you can even see it. We're coming down off the mountain.
I just saw it.
As we walked through the park where we met old friends, they talked about the motherland. Jaju was an immigrant. Jaju was an immigrant. Jaju was an immigrant. Jaju was a soldier. Jaju was a soldier. He rode in the cavalry.
And as we come back from our great adventure, we don't want to forget that tonight is cruise night. And I see they're already coming down Route 17. Well, we saw the cars starting to line up to go to cruise night. We're going to get out the antique bike, maybe see if Rob wants to join us. Get some mileage on his Kawasaki and go down there and see what's new in the world of antique cars and motorcycles. I hope you fish aren't jealous. You know, there was some pretty nice fish up at that garden center today. I could have sold you. I could have made some money. Anyway, it looks like it's going to be looks like it's going to be a nice night. Rob is already here, ready to show off. Let's hear it, boy. All right, movie star, you ready to go?
My tank is empty. You didn't fill me up.
I should buy the gas. I'm breaking a bike in for you.
My tank is empty.
My tank's empty too. We got to get gas. I put 100 miles on his bike to break it in, and I should buy the gas? What dream world is this guy living in? Rob's first trip to Bear Mountain. That was not too bad, huh? All right, I just want to make sure that you're comfortable, you know. Seems like we were only here 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago. Man, it's beautiful up here. Really nice. So we took a quick 110-mile ride before we're going to head out to cruise night. They won't start without us, I'm sure. Coming up here twice in one day. I can't believe it. It's hard to believe. Rob's first trip to Bear Mountain. They already have the tower closed, or I would have climbed up the top of the tower. Karen didn't want to climb up there before. You really get a view you can't believe from the top of that tower. So your bike gets to its first cruise night. Under the lights. Old Norton Commando. Oh, that's nice. That's in nice shape. Awesome.
I got to learn to do the mile. I got to learn to switch around. I got to learn to do the mile. That side is
Into the US
Ready to go have some pizza?
set up.
Yeah, sounds like pizza to go. So I guess I'd count this as a good day. A good day and a good night. Now this is the little pad that we're making for the Yamaha seat out of carbon fiber. It's step one. I put it in on a block of balsa wood, which it's not really a big deal. But now I wanted to answer an obvious question. There's an obvious question to this. Well, what has this got to do with model planes? Well, believe it or not, it has everything to do with it. When you're building a plane, any plane, doesn't matter what, in this case, we're getting our Spitfire. We got it set up with the little jet. We're getting ready to go up to Billy's when that field is going to be available. He's had some issues trying to get permission to fly there, and so we didn't want to push our luck. But every plane that I've ever made, and mine maybe a little more than others, I always try to include some unique little construction technologies. Now, one of the things we developed over the years, carbon fiber cowls, carbon fiber spinners, carbon fiber tanks, with the help of Wayne Triven. Development on props, carbon fiber props, the fiberglassing, the way we fiberglass wings, that we should give the credit again to Big Jim. He came up with that. But all of this technology is technology. When you learn how to build a plane, you learn how to build a house, you learn how to build a race car, a motorcycle, they all interchange. And it's knowing that and understanding that allows you to be a much better modeler. Now, it was, I think, about 10 years ago that Dave Midgley started on what amounts to be the tooling for the wings that we've used in this last maybe 3 or 4 models, except for the Spitfire. Well, this didn't jump out of the can. There was a lot of development, a lot of give and take, a lot of experimenting. But the net result in our modeling life is these are models that I think they're way better in every way that they can be better than if we, as an example, if we built a built-up wing. You'd have open bays that could get punctured. You'd have other shrinkage issues that you don't have with the composite wings. twisting, warping, and etc., when they go out in the sun. But the point is, this is technology that didn't jump right out of the can. It needed to be developed. When Joe came up with the first Spitfire wing design, and that was many years ago, more than 10 years ago, that wing design has evolved into the dihedral wing, the swept forward flap wing, the larger, more scale-like body, among other things. And it evolved over the course of many years. These are things, it isn't as cut and dry as you think it is. Now, one of the mistakes to make in life is to think life is just models. And anything that isn't modeling isn't going to help your modeling career. Assuming you want to be a high-level modeler or a high-skilled modeler, well, painting is one of the things. Working with fiberglass and composites. And in my case, even when I'm working with Bob Brookins on using this urethane car paint, it's something I can use on the nose of the plane. Knowing how this works and how for me it's evolved with Bob's help and Richard Oliver's help, this has really added a dimension to my modeling. Now, I've been able to use that car technology on my nose construction, on my fuselages, on several things. And most of all, where it really works good is on repairing things. Now, for me, I learned long ago one thing for me that I thought was important. I had met Karen about 20 years ago, and I explained to her that I built model planes. That was one of maybe my primary focus of my passion at the time. It still is. And one of the things that I explained to her, I said, well, you know what? If somebody can build a really nice model plane, building a house is relatively easy. Well, it's harder in terms of heavier work, but sanding the spackle on the walls, lining up the beams, making everything square and level, making sure the plumbing doesn't leak is exactly like making your fuel tank not leak. A lot of this technology that you learn in one area of your life, you can apply right to another area of your life almost instantly. Now, I just use as an example all of the things we've been able to do with our motorcycles over the years. Most of it is technology that I learned from modeling. The carbon fiber, the epoxy work, in the case of the mufflers, the high temperature epoxy work. All of that is something I learned in one venue in life, and then I was able to apply it to another venue. Now, by being able to make tune pipes, I was able to make the mufflers for the motorcycle. I was able to make the SV6 muffler for Ray. It's evolved. Everything in my life evolves anyway, and I think everybody's life evolves. I was able to make the seat pretty much the way you would make a giant model airplane part out of balsa wood, plywood, fiberglass, and paint. Now, there's not a whole lot different, but where this has become different for me is in the paint. Now, we've always used, virtually always, Brodak Dope products for the last, I guess, 10 years since it's become developed and popular. But now with Bob Brookins' help, we can add to that knowledge. Now don't misunderstand and think one technology doesn't replace another one. It's the same thing when you invent a jet airplane. It doesn't really replace a prop-driven plane. It complements it. Now, the technology we've used to do the painting on this motorcycle, the painting on the R1, and the future painting that's going to come in the next maybe year or so, we want to turn the R1 into a Ferrari motorcycle. We want to make it pretty much like the Testarossa was. John Cafaro's looking for some Ferrari badging for us and some other special parts. But one technology in one area works right away into another area, almost instantly. Now, what I think is important, and I'd like to share what I've learned, is when I learn something in life, no matter what it is, there's a few basic skills you wish they taught them in high school. How to make something level, how to make something parallel, how to make something 90 degrees. Well, I didn't learn that till later in life, till I worked with Joe Kay in a machine shop. But knowing how to do that has allowed me to level off doors, how to make things open and shut properly. It's allowed me to build better models, and it's basic, absolute basic understanding that you learn from one skill and you transpose it into another. Now, years ago when I was having trouble with flaps warping, I didn't understand as much as I do now about how critical sea-grain wood is, I went to all the effort of making these built-up flaps, and you could build two other planes by the time you make these flaps. Yeah, they don't warp, and yeah, they're light, maybe almost as light as the 1/4-inch wood. But if you have sea-grain wood, it doesn't warp, it doesn't bend. Now that's allowed me, when I've done projects around the house, to go select wood down at Home Depot or the lumberyard. I look at a 2x4 and I see it's twisted. I know I'm not going to be able to build anything real straight with that when I pick out moldings, when I do other things. One skill that you learn transposes right out into another skill. And it's amazing to me now, Rob is learning how to ride a motorcycle, and how many skills that I just took for granted along the way. And because I've been explaining to Rob some of the simple skills that I think go into motorcycle riding, they're really not as difficult as flying. They're hand-eye coordination, common sense, using some good solid judgment. And I'll give you a quick example. The other day, they went to a concert, they were out late at night, and Rob had stayed out till about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were scheduled to go for a motorcycle ride at 6 o'clock in the morning. And when we got together, I said, you know, Rob, you're pretty bleary-eyed, and this is not a good time to go motorcycle riding. And he agreed. Let me get the phone. They're already calling. It isn't even 6 in the morning and they're calling. Now, my good friend Ramo Bark, another thing, and we've gone over this in the past. How many things like bending wire? He was having all kind of issue with bending wire. Well, I know about bending wire because at some point in my first or second job that I had, we used to bend steel bolts, and I know about spring back and about temper and some basics. And from that job, I was able to learn something that I could apply right to the world of model planes. So and I just say it over and over again, learning a skill, any skill, you add it to what you have in your mind or your database in your mind, and there's always something in the world of... Now here's one of the ultimate examples of what I'm talking about. Two things. The skills that Bill Rutherford used in building the real plane, he used similar skills to build a model. But I think there's an even bigger thing with Bill, and it's unique to Bill, maybe not totally unique, but Bill was able to pass some of these skills on to Ryan. And I think it's the passing on of skills. The real enjoyment I get from everything that I do is when I can pass those skills on. In my case, some of the modeling skills, some of the painting skills. In Bill's case, some of the flying skills. I'm sure at some point Ryan will want to, well, he's already a national champion. He'll want to maybe build his own plane, build his own house, build his own workshop. And in the passing of those skills on, there's tremendous enjoyment and satisfaction, which I get anyway. And I always keep this picture in my shop. This is a picture we took when Ken Tyser was up here. The Twin Towers, a few days after this picture was taken, the Twin Towers were attacked. And of course, never be any more pictures like this unless you Photoshop them. But what it reminds me of is what a great student Ken Tyser has been. Kent has enjoyed and passed on to other people, same as Dave Midgley, among others. He's picked up a skill from me, which I've picked up from many people, including Big Jim, including George Aldrich, and you name it. And Harold Price, of course, and then passed it on. And I think that's the cycle of life. And it's in the learning of these skills. Now, I've been learning from Bob Brookins. I've been learning every time I call him. I learned something I didn't know about the world of these urethane paints. Richard Oliver has helped me with that understanding. But it won't be long before I can pass a lot of that on. And here's just one example, something I pretty much on a daily basis have been communicating with Don Herdman's grandson, Matt, who's an up-and-comer in the world of model planes. And he's got the bug, he's got the passion, and he's been designing paint jobs. He's looked at some of the Windy videos that show how to do this, and he's already sketched out. He's already well on the way to doing his own concept drawings. And I think the way it's blossomed already, and I'm sure this will work out great for Matt. He's already volunteered to do write a little column for Stunt News. Well, it's in the passing on, even for Matt. If he can learn something and then jot it down and pass it on, and by the way, Rich Walbridge has a great thing coming out in Stunt News. The people that are willing to share what they know, the Mikey Palco sharing his electric stuff in Control Line World, among others, Joe Adamusco. It's in the sharing that I really think that we really get to be, well, special people in a lot of ways. So when it comes to these projects like this little piece, the seat, I'm making that pad that's going to go on the front of that seat right now, the carbon fiber part. When I made these muffler covers, when I made the little bracket that goes on the master cylinder on a front brake, what happens is I'm using skills that I developed pursuing model aviation. And what's going to happen, it works, it's a two-way street. The skills that I'm developing, working with urethane paints and working with some new epoxies, those skills are going to be applied to future models. So it never ends. It's an endless cycle. And when you share that cycle, the way Dave Midgley has, the way Kent has, other people that are constantly sharing what they know, I think the whole world of model aviation benefits. Now it's funny, and I think it's really funny, because I have use of that carbon fiber with the high temperature resin, I was able to make these really nice muffler covers. Now I look, and I looked in the Yamaha accessory book, these are $400. Now, here's the other point that I make. When you have skills and you're willing to do a little bit of work, what happens is these parts, instead of being $400, there may be $50 worth of material in them, and also you get the satisfaction of knowing you made them. Same thing, this little part is $300, a similar part. It isn't as nice as this, being prejudiced. But because I don't have a passenger seat, I don't carry passengers on this motorcycle. I don't have foot pegs even for them. So having this gives me a little bit of storage room, and most of all gives me a little backrest. And it's that little backrest, that part, that I'm going to be making in the next couple of days. And because of Bob Brookins, I now have perfectly matched paint. I have, because of Dave Midgley and his friend Dick Hewitt, I have the right epoxy, I have the right carbon fiber, and all of these jobs, one builds into the other one. And everything that we've ever learned, from even the most basic thing like sanding out sheetrock on a wall, it still applies to modeling. And all of those modeling skills, boy, have I been able to capitalize on them. Now, in my case, it was even better because I owned rental property, and I was able to do a lot of things that I normally would have had to pay somebody to do. So what happened is, over the course of 35 years that I was a landlord, I accumulated a lot of money in equity because I did the sweat work, and it accumulated as value in the house. Now, here's just one more thing, and I thought this was funny too. There were a lot of little parts on this that I wanted to polish, so I set up a little polishing bench out in the garage. Well, it's handy to be able to polish different things. I think I polished some parts in the back and just parts that I wanted to make look a little nicer, and did a lot of polishing on the Suzuki. But I can polish spinners now. There's parts that I'm able to make look like chrome in a matter of minutes. That normally I'd be thinking, well, how do you do that? And yeah, Noel Drindeck wrote a good article. Rich Oliver showed us how to do some good polishing in a lathe down by his house, or a drill press. But it's still nice to be able to do it. And having a little polishing bench, also it serves the purpose of being a grindstone on one side, a polishing bench on the other side. And learning about Harbor Freight, where you can buy that little grindstone for, in our case, I think we paid $12 for it, or something crazy. It was just crazy how cheap it was. All of that stuff works in our advantage. Now, I'm going to address another little issue here, and I have a nice picture of Phil Granderson's plane. Here's one of the things. Phil is the master of these kind of exotic paint jobs. He's done some beautiful work, won the Concourse Award. He's developed some very nice, unique decal work. Now, among other things, I've asked Rich Walbridge too. Now, Rich Walbridge had something he wanted to express, and I'm going to put this on one of my little storyboards. But he had a couple issues with his Spitfire that, as he's buffing it out, he said the decals that he had put on his Spitfire were high above the clear. And that disappointed him. And I had explained to him that I had experienced the same thing, that some of the decals that we had used over the years seemed like they were very, very thick, and some weren't, and I didn't know the reason why. So what I suggested to Rich was, and this is part of my technology always is, when you have a question and you don't really know the answer, in the world of model planes, there's always somebody who does know the answer. Now, in this case, I suggested he call up Phil Granderson. I don't know if he's gotten an answer from him yet, but I know he's in the process of trying to find out why, as an example, Phil's decals seem much thinner, they lay down much better. And the ones that Joe and I used, Joe had a nightmare with his decals. I had trouble, but I got around it. I'm not sure what the resolve is on that. But as an example, and a good example of one of the things Model Planes teaches me anyway, is when you have a problem in life, look for somebody who's an expert and can help you out. Don't struggle with it too long. Don't try to prove that you know everything about everything. Be the Johnny One Note with playing 10 musical instruments at once. Find a person who has that knowledge. Now, in the world of decals, Richard Oliver had written articles. Phil Granderson, Howard Rush, I know, knows a lot. Well, so when I have a problem, I have people I can call. But in Rich's case, since he lives right near Phil, or they live in the same area, it'd be nice if he could go over to Phil's with his plane and Phil could give him some do's and don'ts. And then, most of all, he could probably pass that on in one of his future little things he's going to write for the magazine. Now, also, one of the people I think is just a special person in the world of model planes is Frank McMillan. Now, he's an excellent pilot, always has been, and an exceptional flyer and builder, but that's not the part that I think is special. Not to take anything away from those skills, but I think Frank has always been, in my case, willing to share little things that he's learned, little sources for material, and just like many other people that have always, I think, added that special dimension. Now, when I had asked Frank about the Martin Baker, he had actually sent me some of the little, they're not decals, they're masks that, and you can't really see them in the photo, and that's what I like about the little world we circulate in. Now, I've found a very similar thing in the world of motorcycles. There's certainly a bunch of people, and we meet them all the time. We met some up at Bear Mountain the other day that ask a question, and they're usually interested in something we have on the bike, or I'm interested in something they have, and they're willing to share it. And so as I look forward to expanding my business into I'm going to try to make some commercial model plane parts are never going to stop. But I want to expand into the area of making some parts for the world of motorcycling. Now, it seems like the technology is exactly the same, and I look forward to seeing if what I can learn from Bob Brookins, which I know is going to be a big help, I'm sure it's going to be a big help, and I'll be able to apply it to motorcycling as well as to modeling. And that's all going to be part of future Windy videos. We're going to have more and more crossover technology. Because one of the things we're going to do in the big job, we're going to try to use Tom Morris's system, the take-apart system, and I know for a fact, a lot of people have bought that hardware and would love to see a DVD on how to do it. Well, yeah, and I'm one of them too. But I know for sure that before this winter's out, we're going to have a DVD on the Tom Morris take-apart system. And we may be able to upgrade it, maybe not. We may be able to make it better, maybe not. But we're sure going to give it the all-American try. And then we'll be able to make take-apart planes the traditional way, where the wing comes out in one piece, which John Pothier was always a big proponent of, making take-apart planes. And I used to argue with him and say, nah, you don't have to make take-apart planes. Well, now I see the value of it. As my house is filled up, and I've got probably 20 planes, I'm running out of room, really. Being able to take them apart and store them, being able to ship them, it's a giant, giant upgrade over just having a plane that's in one piece. And this is one of the pictures I always look at and I think, how many things have we been able to use from one technology to the other? How have we been able to improve the options you have with a motorcycle, the options you have with a model? And I certainly understand that that's an ongoing thing. That's going to get better, and it's like building blocks. Everything I learn about modeling, about painting, about polishing. Now, talking about polishing, I polished all those engine cases on a Suzuki. Same way I would polish a spinner. And how many people I've seen try to polish a spinner and they can't make it look like chrome? Well, it's very disappointing. Well, once you have a polishing bench, you can polish everything. You can polish bolt heads. You can polish your toolbox. It's really something special. Now, but I did want to include on this. Here's one of the things. I had emailed Rich Walbridge about his Spitfire. Now, what had happened on his Spitfire, he had all of the areas buffed out to his satisfaction except the open bays, and he had trouble with the open bays. Well, what he eventually did, and for him the resolution was, and I know he was using 1500 sandpaper, the resolution was that he used 40 steel wool. Now, when you use 40 steel wool, it's just one other way. Billy Werwich had done that years ago, among other people. I had done it. There's some upsides, there's some downsides. It tends not to cut through as quickly as the sandpaper. But again, a lot of people are more comfortable with steel wool. The way to find out if it works for you, it's about $3 for a pack of 40 steel wool. You mix up some soapy water, Windex, whatever, and you try one open bay on the bottom. Now, in Rich's case, he tried a couple open bays. Worked perfectly for him. So he was real happy. Now, there's another way, and this is something I learned from the world of motorcycling. Meguiar's makes a thing called a power ball. It's like a round sponge on the end of a thing that chucks into a drill or a Dremel tool. Now, what I did is I got one so I could polish parts on the motorcycle. And I got the polish that they recommend, and I got the aluminum polish that Rich Oliver recommends, and Meguiar's compound. I got all of that stuff. Then what I did, I said, well, maybe this would work. I took my Spitfire, I took the green one, flipped it over because that one's getting kind of old. It's 10-year-old paint. And I powerballed the bottom a couple of bays, and they came right up beautifully. Now, the only problem with doing that kind of a system, there's a problem. You've got to have two people. There's got to be somebody holding the model. Don't ever try to even use one of those palm buffers, which I've tried in the past. And the problem is I almost never have a second person in the shop. And when I have a second person in the shop, like Billy, we're working on their plane. We're not working on my plane. I'm always here alone, and Karen's not going to hold it, that's for sure. So what happens is these are techniques that when you have your back to the wall, like Rich Walbridge had, you can try them. I would never recommend going back by the tail, but an open bay, if you're real careful, is no reason. And Rich, living proof is, Rich had the best of luck. Now, there's another thing about buffing out this type of a wing. Here's another thing to always remember about paint. Paint or epoxy, both. You can buff out epoxy resin the same way you buff out paint. And on a part like this that's solid as a rock, you can just take an orbital buffer, or even a buffer on a drill, or one of the power balls, and just buff away. It's no big deal at all. It's very easy. You can't really go through because there's so much material on it. You'd have to sit there for 20 minutes without moving a buffer before you'd go through. But on a model, it's different. On a plane, there's a different set of rules. Similar, but different. And here's one of the things that I think you always have to keep in mind, and it's critical. On a model, on a big flat piece like a motorcycle gas tank or a muffler, you can just buff away. But here's what I've seen people try to do that they've really gotten in deep water. They try to buff on a round curved surface, and what happens is they wear a notch in it. Or, in this case, you catch on something. Catch on a tank vent, the worst thing is to catch on the edge of a flap or an elevator. It usually destroys the model. Anything, and another tip for doing these kind of buffing with a wheel, anything you can take off the model. Let's say you could take the spinner off and then go over to your buffing wheel or your palm buffer, your orbital buffer, and hold it in your hand or make a mount. When it's in your hand, it's a lot safer than if it is on a model, because a model usually has edges and things. You can burn the paint off an edge. You've always got to be careful, but you can do it. The point is you can do it. The thing you gain by buffing everything by hand is you usually don't do that. As soon as you see you going through, you're done. But with a tool, especially a power buffer or an orbital buffer, what happens, by the time you see it, it's way too late. Now I know all of these edges, and an example, that's got to be buffed by hand. In my case, that I wouldn't even think about it. I wouldn't think about trying to run a buffer down this. And again, part of this is I enjoy doing the buffing. But on big flat areas, and if you have, another thing you can do is put a rheostat or a light dimmer in the circuit with your orbital buffer so it goes a lot slower. Or buy a drill. In my case, I have one of those cheesy, the orange drills, I can't think of the name of it, a Harbor Freight that they sell for $9 that has a rheostat built right into the drill. Now, one of the things I've done many times that I thought would be well, useful or whatever is I'll take carnauba wax. Now, not rubbing compound, just carnauba wax. Meguiar's carnauba wax. And I'll just put some on the motorcycle by hand and then buff it off. I have big orbital buffer, a Sears Roebuck one, that I just use for cars and motorcycles. I've never used it on an open bay wing because I'm just afraid. See, to me, it's unnecessary because I have the energy level to do this. But I understand a lot of people don't, and they're looking for a shortcut. But then there's the final thing that you really have to always consider is something that works for Richard Oliver or for Wendy or for Bob Brookins or for you name a person. It doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And in Rich Walbridge's case, the fact that he found a way to buff out his open bays that he's happy with is worth its weight in gold. It may not work for other people, but it's nice to have all the choices. And it's nice to always be able to take an open bay on the bottom of the wing and try something. Don't try it on the top of the wing. Use the bottom of the wing to do all your experiments until you're happy that it's going to work for you. And then, when you go to the top of the wing where people are really going to see it, you've got a real good shot at having it down to a science. Now, I have to be honest about another thing I learned, and I learned this the hard way over the winter. I'm sure I put this on a video at least once. When we did the original thing for the porch on the house, all of this trim was in the computer-generated drawings. All of the railings were. And another thing, I remember them telling me, I remember the contractor saying that painting this, they had given us a ridiculous price. The painter wanted to paint the railing and all this little trim. And I said, hey, I'm a modeler. What's the big deal? And I certainly have a 1/4-inch brush. It took me, I think, 6 or 7 days to do all the painting. I know I videotaped some of it, but you know what? The money I saved with that more than paid for the new motorcycle. Now, it's not always a factor, but sometimes it is a factor that as a modeler, you can do things that not only you'll get the satisfaction of doing, or you'll be able to do it where otherwise you couldn't do it. But the other thing is, and Karen reminds me all the time, if you could save, let's just make a pretend number up, if you could save $10,000 by not having to hire a painter, and if I remember right, that's about what the cost would have been, that gives you $10,000 to rebuild your shop. But in our case, we need a new car, do something else, or whatever. One of the things we did is we put that money into, instead of having a wood floor, we have a composite floor. And now I see something, as time has gone by, I see the merit of having our floor as composite, because we have all these hanging plants, and what happens every day, we have to water them, the floor gets wet. So that wood would not have the lifespan anywhere near what the composite will have. So, and what happens with all technology, one good thing builds on to another. When you know about the limitations of wood, you know about the limitations of any composite, and then you can make rational decisions. And I always think, just another thing, and it's so funny for me, the same technology that we used to make John Brodak's B25 cowls, same thing we used to make some of the Yamaha parts. Same exact material, technology. And there's just one of the parts we molded using exactly the same technology that you use. It's identical in every way as making a B-25 cowlings. These are little motorcycle heel pads. Same exact technology that I've used on other things. Now, I've also run into several people that wanted me to make similar parts for their bike. And what I do is I look in the Yamaha catalog and I get the price. And I usually do it for 10% less. And every time I do it, they're very happy because the workmanship I put into these things, the buffed out paint, the urethane paint when it's buffed out, it looks like jewelry. Some of the other parts, now in this case, one of the nice things is because I had modified other parts of the bike, I was able to carry the rear master cylinder off of one piece where normally on a stock motorcycle you need two brackets. I was able to make one bracket that did both things. And there's always something about, I don't know what it is, but I know it applies to model railroading too. The things I've learned in the world of model planes have helped me build a very enjoyable and long-lasting model railroad. It's just one of those things that I just never underestimate. Now, one of our next projects we're going to be making, this part here is a plastic part, and I want to make it out of carbon fiber and then paint it. Now, by having that part blue, I wanted to look at it in carbon fiber first, and then I wanted to paint it blue now that we have the matching Bob Brookins paint. It gives me a lot of choices. The same way, if I look at a model and I like to do these little concept drawings and I say, how did that look black? I should have made that green, should have made it blue. How do I like the canopy? Concept drawings, and what I do is I take pictures of the motorcycle and then I just envision what these parts, I know I didn't like the stripes. I've already got those off the bike, but it allowed me to do things because the same concept drawings that I use for the models, I use to engineer or design up parts for the motorcycle. And it seems like there's an unending amount of technology that just goes across the line and I can use for more than one thing. And I also always have another secret weapon in Karen. What Karen always allows me to do is I run these ideas by her, and her sense of style and design and what matches what has always helped me make better models, and I think ultimately some better looking motorcycles and motorcycle parts. Now, when we first bought the motorcycle, the first thing I asked her, and of course you had to get one, each one of the colors has different stripes. First thing I asked her, I said, wouldn't this look better without these stripes? She said, oh my God, you're right. Lose the stripes. Another thing now, because I have to keep this bike classic, I can't go customizing it by law. Now that it's a legitimate registered historic motorcycle, it can't be. I can't just go paint it. Well, up to a point. But this bike I can. The first thing when I looked at it in my concept drawing, I said, what the hell is that doing on an angle there? I don't like that at all. If it had something written here going straight, but having it on an angle, I said, ay, ay, ay. So I ran that by Karen and she said, lose the Yamaha too. Now, one of the things you can do with that polishing bench too is polish headers, whether it's tune pipe or these headers. You can polish in a cast case Rojet, you can polish the whole case. Now this of course is looking out my backyard, and one of the things the videos always allow me to do, and I do it regularly because I'm always playing video in a shop, is to look back at how my life has unfolded and how unpredictable it's been, and how, well, sometimes it's been a little rough, sometimes it's been pretty good. The year we've just had, the year 2009, has been very good for us. Having all this work done, having the new porch, having the backyard, having the tribute plane. Once we get our flying field back in another month, we'll be ready to go back to flying with the hogs. But in the meantime, I've been able to use this month to do a lot of little things and expand my business into what I think is going to be a nice, productive, enjoyable thing of making motorcycle parts. And John Pothier has helped me work on a logo. We just started it, the concept today, but we're going to look at getting a logo that I can use on business cards and t-shirts for the future. And John, of course, always more helpful than you can ever expect. And I never underestimate, even though I've argued with people about this, I'm on the losing end of the argument, I've never underestimated the world of information sharing that we have. I enjoy sharing the information with people over the internet virtually every day, sharing my life and getting to share their life, whether they live in Sweden or Australia or Texas or California. We all get to see just what the other person is going through. And I also look back to the many years that Dave and I had tried to make this composite wing technology as good as it is now. And right now, I think it's really just one of the nicest ways you can make a wing. We'll be using it in the future on our full-size planes. We can't really use it on a big job, of course, because it's an old-time stunt, and we want to make it as authentic as possible. But I would never underestimate all of the work and all of the energy Dave Midgley has put into that endeavor. And it won't be long and we'll be back seeing the hogs. The lovable hogs. And we're hoping this new field that Billy has is going to work out. We don't know for sure yet, but we're always hoping. And as we get near the end of this video, I hope that some of the things you've been able to pick up off the video, whether they're simple, basic, or relatively high-tech, the two things, I hope you'll share them with other people. And of course that you'll contribute back into our database and let us know, just as Rich Walbridge has done with his latest crisis. Let us know how you've been able to solve a problem, and we can hopefully be able to pass it on to many other people. And having said that, what I think of is fall is coming, the leaves are going to change pretty soon, and well, we're going to be starting our regular shop hours and shop things. But we've learned an awful lot this summer. We've learned a lot about motorcycles, a lot about modeling, a lot about technology. And we hope really that you've been enjoying the videos as much as we are. We do enjoy making them. And thanks a lot for joining us. Now, before we actually end the video, I wanted to just include 1 minute of what John is working on a logo. Now, we haven't used the real motorcycles. This is just a concept. And I wanted to show that that's one of the things. The same way if you're doing a t-shirt logo or a paint job on your motorcycle or on your plane, or if you're Matt, or if you're Windy, or if you're Rich Walbridge, having a little concept of what you're going to do is always a good starting point. And I sent this out to a few people that I know have good artistic skills at John's request. And John has, we've already gotten good feedback on what to change and how to change it. So we're going to see how this logo evolves in the next couple of weeks. We're going to make up some nice, hopefully t-shirts and business cards. And if you're interested in having one of these, we certainly can make a deal. We'll make something out of it. But I wanted to show more than anything else how things evolve. They don't just jump, I always call it jump out of a bottle. They don't jump out of a bottle. They evolve over time. And even our beloved tribute and all the little logos we had for Chicky and for the decaling, all of this evolved over several weeks of back and forth with John. Every one of these logos, every one of these lettering things, and we've gotten feedback from people like John Cafaro, who I think his artistic skills are just superb, and among other people. Elliot's always had good skills, artistic skills, and we try to make the best. We try to put it all together, and then as we always do, we try to share it. So Rich Walbridge's skills with his Spitfire drawings, all of them, they've all gone into what I hope is a good database that you've been able to take advantage of. And of course, we hope we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for joining us.